Peace, 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 family, peace. Greetings, this is Professor Griff, and this is a special edition of The Masters, of course, brought to you by Black Power Media, Reloaded, with your host, Professor Griff. All right. Shout out to everyone that's joining me at this late hour. I guess there's a few people home, other people that can't catch the show during the day. Normally, I come on at 12 noon, Monday and Wednesday. But shout out to the people that can join me tonight. This is a special edition. Of course, as you already know, this is December 4th, International Revolutionary Day. All right. And we're focusing on our good brother, Fred Hampton Sr. If you do not know who Fred Hampton Sr. is, please look the brother up right now as we speak. Fred Hampton Sr. I had the pleasure of speaking with his son, Fred Hampton Jr. earlier. Thanks to my good brother, Dr. Khalid El-Hakim, who tapped me in to what the brother was doing in Chicago, honoring and celebrating the revolutionaries around the world, and honoring his dad, Fred Hampton Sr. I had the pleasure of speaking to his wife, of course, well, his mom, Fred Hampton Jr.'s mom, Fred Hampton Sr.'s wife. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sister. Beautiful woman from the day I've met her. She's been nothing but an honorable woman, beautiful, and just kind of being the mother of the revolution and carrying this energy forward. So much so that, we can all look to the information that she still holds, not only in our memory, but in our spirit, so that we can carry on and speak the name of her. I'm not even going to say late husband, because we never speak of our greats as being dead. He's now an ancestor, and he lives in us. Our ancestors speak to us from within us. All right, so shout out to Dr. Khalid El-Hakim. Thank you very much for allowing me to be in that space. Good brother, I really appreciate that. So right now, you should be looking up our good brother, Fred Hampton Sr. All right. While you're doing that, I'm just going to play a small little clip so we can understand the dynamic of what we're dealing with. Listen, I'm not going to be on long. I'm going to come back. Matter of fact, let me give a few announcements right now. As you already know, and you should already know, this Sunday, I've been invited to be on, to be in Siddiqui Bakari's class at 11 a.m. West Coast time, 2 a.m. East Coast Standard Time. And we're going to be demystifying. Whoa, hold on. Let me put it up on the screen. We're going to be demystifying the industrial entertainment industry complex, part 2. Jaguar Wright did part 1. Professor Griff is doing part 2. And Jaguar Wright is going to be the special invited guest this Sunday, along with your brother, Professor Griff, hosted and moderated by Siddiqui Bakari. All right, if you want more information or you want to get see the event is not, it's only going to be broadcast there. It's not going to be on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, none of that. All right, they'll probably never reach those platforms because we need to be in a space where we can really talk. If you want that information, if you want to take part in it, please hit me up. Send me a text message at 678-557-2919. Those of y'all that are seeing it right now on the screen, if you want the information, you can just go right to PayPal.me/Professor Griff Corp, or just go to Professor Griff on PayPal. Pay. Siddiqui Bakari is charging $77, but you can get the special Professor Griff price for $50. Come on in. Here we got to say. I can't wait because there's some information that I've been waiting to talk about. All right. When we start demystifying this entertainment industrial complex. All right. And I'm sure Jaguar Wright got some few questions for her. I'm sure she has some few questions for me, and we're going to dialogue. All right. Let me play this clip, and we're going to kind of dive into this particular subject. Once again, thank everyone for joining me this evening. I don't normally come on anymore at this particular hour. So shout out Troy Scott, shout out Jacqueline Bush, Larry, Bantu, James Smith, Gerald. Shout out to Gerald. Peace, fam. What's good, bro? All right, Angela. Angela, all the way from New Orleans. Angela said, I'm repping in New Orleans. Troy Parker, Nana from Battle Creek, Michigan. Black Ace is with us on the mic with my man Terrence Bailey Sr. All right. Shout out to everybody on here on IG. All right. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining me this evening for this small, brief talk that we're going to have. All right. D-Train, what's up, man? Peace, fam. Nisa Shabazz in the building. All right. C. Jones from Houston, Texas. Thank you very much, Miss Jones. Me and Mrs. Jones, we don't got a thing going on, but we got this thing going on. Shout out to C. Jones. What's good with you? Anyway, let's talk.
On this day, 55 years ago, 2 Black Panther members were shot and killed by 2 Chicago police officers in a raid. That included Fred Hampton, civil rights leader and Black Panther member, gunned down by Chicago police. At the time,
damn, they called Fred Hampton Sr. a civil rights leader. I'm sorry, I don't mean to stop it, but yeah, that just kind of took me. Hold on, let me just back it up. All right. I'm good.
Police officers in a raid. That included Fred Hampton, civil rights leader and Black Panther member, gunned down by Chicago police. At the time, officials described it as a gunfight, but later, an investigation determined police falsified their report, firing nearly 100 bullets compared to 1 from 2 men. All charges against the police, though, were dismissed. Well, today you can learn more about Hampton and the Black Panthers from his son, Fred Hampton Jr. He joins me now live. I really appreciate you being with me this morning, Fred.
Morning. Appreciate you having us.
Now, our pleasure. We understand you're hosting events beginning at noon at the very home where your father was killed, where that raid took place. Can you talk about that?
Yes, indeed. In fact, we had a number of different convened a number of events before this, which we refer to as the pre-IRD events. We refer to December 4th as International Revolutionary Day. Again, as you just mentioned, this marks the 55th year. We're going to be convening at 12 o'clock, 2337 West Monroe. This high noon, 12 o'clock. We have people come from all over the world, representations of present-day political prisoners, people who are still engaged in the struggle, members of the Black Panther Party, survivors. Actually, in particular, my mother, my comrade, Akua and Jerry, formerly known as Deborah Johnson, who at the time was 8.5 months pregnant with me at the time. She will be giving a virtual tour of what occurred, as well as a number of other survivors. We have solidarity statements coming in from members of the cast of the Oscar award-winning movie Judas and the Black Messiah that talked about the depicted assassination of Chairman Fred and Fiscal Lamar Clark. Isaiah Thomas, the NBA great Chicago Detroit, he's sending solidarity statements for 12 o'clock, 2337 West Monroe. It would be at the DuSable Museum on 5600 South Cottage Grove at 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock p.m. Then at 8 o'clock p.m. today, we'll be convening at the Hampton House. That's the childhood home in which he grew up in, 804 South 17th Avenue, Maywood, Illinois. Now, the information can be retrieved on thehamptonhouse.org. Again, thehamptonhouse.org.
Fred, I have to ask you, I know we've talked to you before about preserving that very house you were just talking about. Is that now solidified that it will remain intact, or are you still fighting to make sure that his child or your dad's childhood home remains, intact?
Yes, in fact, we've saved the house. We have an ongoing campaign to maintain the house. We're working on still raising funds for renovations. It's a historical landmark. And I just want to, I want to thank all of the people, the media outlets, everyone that goes to help us get that word out. Again, this is the house in which he grew up in, 804 South 17th Avenue, right across the street from the elementary school he attended. We have tours going there that they also can get information on thehamptonhouse.org. So that campaign, again, to maintain the work that we got going on. We have a community refrigerator right in front of the house. We have the free clothes, free food program, because we not only just preserving the house, we're also fighting to maintain the legacy of what Chairman Fred and the Black Panther Party would have represented.
Though I have one last question for you, if that's okay.
Yes,
I know
good.
you were just you were born 25 days after your father was killed, but you've really spent most of your adult life, at least, talking about him, making sure that he is remembered and making sure the events surrounding his death are discussed. Why is that so important to you, even 55 years later?
As you said, I was born exactly 25 days later. And I think even in addition to myself, I think it's something that my community in particular, people in general, humanity, something that we should know about. Chairman Fred Hampton, as well as a number of others, were what we refer to as not role models, but real models, people who we can relate to. He was taken from us at the age of 21. Defense Captain Mark Clark was 22 years old. It was actually Chairman Fred who authored the Rainbow Coalition. Under his tenure, the free breakfast program, the Black Panther Party, the first free breakfast program, free medical centers, free busing program. This not only impacts me, it's something that, again, that should be discussed everywhere. In fact, something came out of the movie with Jews and Black Messiah with the Hampton House was a curriculum. We actually have a curriculum that gives an insight, because there's so much misinformation, so much so many incorrect narratives, so much ongoing slander about the Black Panther Party. So we have to fight to maintain that legacy of what Chairman Fred and the Black Panther Party would have represented.
All right, Fred Hampton Jr., thank you so much for joining me this morning. Really appreciate it. And for a complete
That was Fred Hampton Jr., the son of Fred Hampton Sr., part of the Illinois chapters of the Black Panther Party. You got to understand something. Fred Hampton Sr. was really young. All right. He was extremely young when he got assassinated by the Chicago Police Department. Someone said I should say allegedly. No, it was proven through the court of law that it was an assassination, and the Chicago Police Department was held liable and responsible. That's the official, I guess, but we already had the information and already knew the information on what happened to Fred Hampton Sr. So when you start talking about the movie that came out, which Fred Hampton Jr. was just talking about and alluding to the fact that there's so much misinformation that's out there in reference to the Black Panther Party. Most of us that are on this broadcast right now wasn't even born. All right. If this happened in the 60s, you're talking about 55 years ago, and I'm 64 years old. You only talk about, I guess, when I was 9, it went down. So that information had to be taught to me, and it was when I went through the African American experience. Those ex-Black Panthers that I was taught by passed that information on. And the 60s was a turbulent time for Black people in America. All right. So yeah. So you just heard from Fred Hampton Jr. There was a series of events that went on today, December 4th, which he said is IRD Day, International Revolutionary Day for revolutionaries across the globe, because this is the day that his father, Fred Hampton Sr., was assassinated by the Chicago police. So, family, you're growing up. Who are those revolutionaries that you could remember, whether it's now or that you can remember in your life period? Who are those revolutionaries? Who are those revolutionaries? Can y'all mention any of those particular revolutionaries that you knew or that your parents taught you about growing up? Hold on. Out of all the lazy children, Fred Hampton was most like his dad. Malcolm's daughters seem different than him. Oh, okay. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you, Michelle Joyner. Okay. Michelle Joyner said Steve Coakley influenced 1414 said Malcolm. Little Dizzy said Larry Hoover. Spoken word by Brother Storm says Huey P. Newton. Brother Storm. A Miracle Sensation says people like you, David Banner, Malcolm X, Huey P. Newton, David Augustine. All right. A Meek says Huey P. Newton. Aaron Israel says Marcus Garvey. All right. Troy Parker says Malcolm X, of course. Thank you, Matthew White. All right. Kwame Ture, JFKRKD, CJFRKD. Kwame Ture, formerly known as Stokely Carmichael. But if we don't keep the memory of our revolutionary brothers alive, if we don't say to them, yeah, I was waiting for that one. Solo 5000 said Khalid Muhammad. Professor Gypsy Star says Reverend Dr. King. El Haj Malik Shabazz. The Move Organization, Minister Farrakhan. UPE, Black Watch Movement, Khalid Muhammad. So as we begin to kind of understand the idea of keeping the spirit of our greats alive, we don't have a Memorial Day where we celebrate those people that fought, bled, and died, to see that we're in the position today where we can at least come on here and have a discussion. There's a national holiday of Memorial Day where America honors their dead soldiers. All right. Their dead soldiers that went around the world neutralizing and unaliving every black and brown nation. All right. You could go on YouTube right now and look up the CIA's greatest hits and all of the countries and governments that they neutralized, taking their natural resources and assassinating their leaders. You said Sekou Odinga, okay. H. Rap Brown, George Washington Carver. Someone said Tupac. We could go online and look it up. It's not a secret. It's not one of those situations where you have to dig too deep. It's right there on the internet, told by them. All right. How the alphabet boys from America neutralized governments to put puppets in place in different countries. Troy Parker said Mumia Abu-Jamal. So this is not something that we're just kind of talking about just because we want to sound revolutionary tonight. No, this is actual fact. All right. Janice Davis says Angela Davis. So let's understand the dynamic and what we need to do in reference to keep those revolutionaries alive. A, we got to speak their name. No, A, we got to know their history and know who they are. B, we got to speak their names on days like this. All right? Because in a minute, you could become the next revolutionary. Whether you like Black Lives Matter movement or not, there are some people that put some things in place and sets our energy in motion that the United States government secretly took out of here, allegedly. All right? Trauma to Triumph podcast says Elaine Brown, Angela Davis, Kathleen Cleaver, Dr. Amos Wilson, Asada Shakur. Let's dive into this next clip, family. There was the hold on. Let me play this next clip for you so we can get an understanding of what happened that day. All right.
December 4th, 1969. Akua Njeri was 19 years old and sleeping next to her fiancé, the Illinois Black Panther Party chairman, Fred Hampton.
The next thing I remember was someone in our room shaking Chairman Fred. Chairman, wake up, wake up. Plaster was flying off the wall. You could smell the cordite from the gunshot. If you've ever been under gunfire, 5 minutes is 5 hours. To you, it seems like forever. The shooting started back again. Then another voice unfamiliar to me said, "He's good and dead now." I knew they were talking about Chairman Fred.
Fred Hampton was murdered by his government. But before that, he was a leader in a movement practicing a new kind of activism. A movement targeted because of its power to unite people.
Marking 1964 as a historic year in race relations, on July 2nd, President Johnson signed into law the Civil Rights Act. It was the strongest...
In the 1960s, racial progress in the U.S. was at a turning point. Activists won major civil rights victories, and the era of Jim Crow laws came to an end. But at the end of the decade, there were still deep social and economic gaps for Black people across the country. Black Americans continued to face high poverty, poor housing, and unemployment, and they still had little to no political representation. These disparities and an increase in brutal police violence led to uprisings across the country. Many young Black activists grew frustrated that the changes they'd hoped for hadn't come.
It's just the opposite of being a white man. That's about the best I can abbreviate that for you.
After the police killing of an unarmed Black teen in San Francisco, two activists in Oakland, California, Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, founded what was initially called the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense. Newton had studied law and knew it was legal to carry arms in California as long as they were not concealed. The Panthers began to patrol their communities. As the movement grew, several highly publicized confrontations with police would bring about mainstream awareness of the Black Panther Party. The allegations in these confrontations were serious, but the public accounts of them were typically one-sided and shaped largely by police. Media coverage depicted party members as a caricature of Black militancy.
The Black Panther Party was portrayed as a marauding gang. They say their goal was to kill all the white people.
In reality, the Panthers did call for radical change.
What they were hoping for was a revolution to overthrow the capitalist enterprise.
But what they called revolution might not actually sound so radical today.
Focused on socialism as a way of solving economic needs. They looked to places like Canada, which always had a democratic political system, but the economic system has always been socialism. So they wanted a democratic socialist country here in the United States, which they saw as a more equitable, more humane system.
They released a 10-point plan for broad social reform that called for an end to police brutality and for Black employment, housing, education, and freedom from prison and jails. Chapters began forming across the country. They started to implement social programs, which they called survival programs.
The Panthers would say, put that theory into practice. If you really want to change minds, and you really want to meet the people where they are, you have to give them the services which they need.
The programs included food and clothing drives, free health clinics, and sickle cell disease testing, and were funded largely by volunteers and donations from businesses. One of their biggest programs was a free breakfast for children initiative.
Here we are living in 1966, 67, is the most wealthy nation in the world. And kids were going to school hungry, especially in African-American communities. So one of the first community service programs were free breakfast for school children.
And all the children had to do was come.
It was during this time that Akua and Jerry, then known as Deborah Johnson, met Fred Hampton.
I was a student at Rice City College, and Chairman Fred had come up to the school to speak. And he said, in the breakfast program, we feeding over 3,000 children a week. We're serious about making power to the people of reality. We're not just sitting up here jaw-jabbing and talking shit, we about work. And I said, damn, we serious about this business.
Fred Hampton grew up in Maywood, Illinois, just west of downtown Chicago. He became president of his local NAACP Youth Council in 1967 at 19 years old. Shortly after, he was recruited by a founder of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party.
That you can jail revolutionaries, but you can't jail a revolution. Right.
Because of his charismatic skills, he quickly rise to the top of the crop.
Here he is at age 21, building and leading the Illinois chapter Black Panther Party.
Soon after they met, and Jerry and Hampton became a couple.
Anybody that has met him or heard him speak, they say he wasn't bullshit. He was for real.
You got to understand, the people have to get quiet for peace. If you dare to struggle, you dare to win. If you dare not to struggle, then goddamn it, you don't deserve to win. Let me say peace to you if you're willing to fight for it.
Chicago in particular was a place where the party's ideals especially resonated. It was then the second largest American city, and due to decades of discriminatory policies, also one of the most segregated. Chicago's mayor at the time, Richard J. Daley, opposed neighborhood integration. And in the 1950s, the city had begun to redevelop certain neighborhoods, pushing low-income residents out and into densely packed, high-rise public housing in already overcrowded neighborhoods. Black people were pushed primarily to the south and west side of Chicago. A large Puerto Rican population was here in Lincoln Park, and poor white people were concentrated here in Uptown. These groups all faced similar problems.
They all had dilapidated schools. They all had dilapidated homes. They were all being drafted into Vietnam. Very few of those communities had health care.
In 1969, Hampton led the Panthers towards an unexpected alliance, a coalition of activists working across racial lines against a corrupt city government that threatened their communities.
We're going to fight racism, not from racism, but we're going to fight with solidarity.
What they had in common was their poverty. So they was building a revolution based on class solidarity that transcends race, that they all had the same hell to pay.
Hampton named the group the Rainbow Coalition. It included the Black Panthers, a Puerto Rican group called the Young Lords, and a group called the Young Patriots, made up of largely poor white migrants from Appalachia who had moved to Chicago seeking economic opportunity.
We don't hate the motherfucking white people, we hate the oppressor, whether he be white, black, brown, or yellow. So we got to know that.
I don't mean sing Kumbaya and make a quilt. I'm talking about bringing them together on common things they could unite on. Not everything, but who could say that children do not deserve to have a healthy meal?
If we work with anybody and form coalition with anybody, that has revolution on their mind. We're not a racist organization because we understand that racism is an excuse used for capitalism.
Hampton and other Panthers helped the Young Lords and Young Patriots launch their own social programs. They organized protests together. And it was working. Members were traveling across the country to organize Rainbow Coalition chapters.
Particularly where Black Panther chapters were, but also in these rural white communities as well, to bring the revolution to bear. This blows people's minds. These people are not supposed to get along, but here they are operating as brothers of the struggles, as revolutionaries against the capitalist structure. And that.
All right. In watching these clips and remembering Fred Hampton Sr. and the work that he put in, you kind of figure, I think Michelle, who said it? Michelle, did you say it? That he was 21 years old? Doing this at 21 years old. All right. This is why I asked you, who are those revolutionaries that you remember? What is your concept of revolution? Matter of fact, what is your definition of revolution? All right. So someone had put a comment up, and I think this is the first comment I want to kind of deal with going into the comment section so we can dialogue. I just don't want to play clips, and I'd rather just play them. We have a discussion, and then we can open up the floor for anybody that wants to say something. So the first individual, Golden Brown. Besides social media, what are we going to build as far as institutions? Something concrete. Well, Golden Brown, let's let you put in the information in the chat room of what you're doing. And then maybe those that's in your area that you have access to, maybe we can get them to link up with you so we can see what you're doing that's so concrete. And then maybe we can, have the people in that area follow you. And then you can link up with the other people around the country that I know. But we need to see what you're doing first. All right. I don't think you, Golden Brown, whoever you are, I don't think you know your history. Because after they didn't only murder Fred Hampton, they murdered a few Black Panthers and they neutralized the organizations. So I really don't think you know your history. So if you're asking the question, what did they do after they murdered Fred Hampton? Well, you should know that history. All right. Now, if you're coming on here to seek the information, that's another thing. But you can look that information up. I just finished saying that. You could do some research and you could look up what they were doing to the Black Panther Party at that particular time. Thank you, Tina Y. They took the Rainbow Coalition and gave it to Jesse Jackson. Messy Jesse Jackson. Anyone on IG that have any comments or questions? Dion Karn says, I believe revolution or revolutionary starts in the community per se. Okay, let's define revolution because I think we're kind of throwing this word around. All right. And some of us have an old kind of understanding and an old filter that we're putting on our lens to look back at this idea of revolution. What does revolution mean? Oh, thank you. Chicago News 101. I got you. Stop the Planet. I want off. Says, I will say me. That's what revolution is. I am breaking generational habits within my family. A revolution means change for the people. Professor Gypsy Star says revolution starts in the heart and mind of its, and then filters through to the conscious community. Does it have to be the conscious community, or can it just be the community or consciousness of the community? Okay. Z or Trauma to Triumph podcast. I think this is what people think revolution is. It's the overthrow of a government or a social order to implement a new system. Revolution doesn't necessarily mean overthrowing any government. You can overthrow the government of your mind. All right? Revolution simply means complete conscious cosmic change. Revolution is a change of your mindset, as Nisa Shabazz just said. It's constructive conscious change. You don't necessarily have to overthrow anybody's government. Queen Nina Starr says a change for the betterment of a people with the willingness to fight for the change. Fly High 95 says revolution is to evolve in a state of well-being, engineered to gear up for new life. Troy Parker says revolution simply means being on code first. Well, Troy Parker, what code are you talking about? Give us the code. Who gave us the code? Where is the code? Where can people find the code? A lot of people say they don't even know what the damn code is. So let's understand the dynamic on what should it mean for us to go back and to study those revolutionaries and see what they put in place and even how they did it in order for us to understand what we have to do in this digital age that we live in order for us to not have this conversation 5-10 years from now. I do not want my children's children to sit here in front of this camera 10-20 years from now having the same conversation. All right. Was it Gil Scott Heron said the revolution will not be televised? Did Public Enemy not come along and say it might be digitized? So let's begin to understand that particular dynamic. Let's dive back into the talk. Hold on. We're almost done with it.
That was the threat to the state at the local level, but also at the national level.
In 1968, the FBI had sent around this internal memo. It outlined goals to prevent.
The goals of the FBI for maximum effectiveness of the counterintelligence program and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals are being set. Prevent the coalition from militant black nationalist groups. In unity is their strength. The FBI said it. In unity is their strength. If the FBI said it, how come we don't know it? They wanted to prevent the rise of a black messiah. And then they listed some organizations and some people they thought that might have been the Black Messiah. They said they didn't want us to take real steps towards the Mau Mau in America. Well, who was the Mau Mau? Who was the Mau Mau? I'm going to give you all a minute. Look up the Mau Mau and come talk to me. All right?
Prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist.
Prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist groups in America. Who was the Mau Mau?
Groups and prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify.
Fly High 95 said, I got one phone. Somebody please look it up. Thank you very much, Queen Nina Starr. The Mau Mau was a revolutionary freedom fighter group in Kenya who fought against the British. All right? Thank you.
And electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. It wasn't written about Hampton specifically, but by 1969,
Chairman Fred Hampton was the one that fit the bill.
The revolution was in the air. And the ways in which the Panthers was able to transcend those racial lines, especially their charismatic leadership of one like Fred Hampton, they saw him as a greater threat even than Martin Luther King or Malcolm X ever was.
In one FBI memo about the Black Panthers breakfast program, they claimed their real purpose was to poison minds with anti-white propaganda and indoctrinate youngsters in hate and violence.
The FBI, under the leadership of J. Edgar Hoover, had deemed the Black Panther Party as the #1 threat to the internal security of this country.
The FBI operated a counterintelligence program called COINTELPRO. It was a program that targeted dissident political groups in the U.S. Their methods typically went outside the law.
They were using tactics such as assassination, discrediting false narratives. They were falsely putting people in prison and exile, which were all illegal.
Several Black Panthers were killed or imprisoned, including the party co-founders. In Chicago, the party was also targeted by Mayor Daley and the Chicago police.
Our office was burned down at least 3 times. People would disappear. You never see their bodies again.
Before you go to bed, night, say I am a revolutionary. Make that the last word. In case you don't wake up, then somebody might believe it and you might end up in what they call a revolutionary happy hunting ground.
Hampton, a rising star at just 21 years old, knew he was a target too.
If Fred Hampton, during that period, was a target, do you think today you could be a target? Do you think that you could be a target today? Or are you just going to sit back and just kind of let things happen because they happen? I think a lot of people are just sitting back. I think a lot of people are just outright scared. I think a lot of people, like, for example, there's been 2 or 3 trolls on here that I had to ban and block since we've been on here. We don't really know what their motive is. We don't know if it's government. We don't know if it's just ignorant Negroes. Do you understand what I'm saying? But trust me, you know, when they come for Professor Griff, guess who they coming for next? We'll leave that one right there on the table.
He'd been arrested in 1968 for allegedly robbing an ice cream truck and handing out $71 of ice cream. In 1969, he was sentenced to 2 to 5 years in prison. He appealed and was released on bond, but lost the appeal. He'd have to return to prison by December 6th. On December 4th, around 4 a.m., 14 Chicago police officers arrived outside Hampton's apartment on Chicago's west side. Inside, Hampton and Jerry and 7 other Panthers were asleep.
I was very pregnant, and the first thing I remember was Chairman Fred had fell asleep while talking on the phone. The next thing I remember was someone in our room started shaking the chairman. Said, Chairman, wake up, the pigs are vamping. And I'm seeing Chairman Fred look up, and then he laid his head back down real slow.
Yeah, we seen this part earlier. It's hard for me to kind of watch this kind of stuff because when I first learned about this, I still feel some kind of way. And then when the movie came out, it just kind of did something else to me. But Michelle Joyner, you're absolutely correct. So the FBI, the rest of the alphabet boys, came up with this concept of black identity extremists. Is the new resistors, the revolutionaries of today. But they framed one guy and called him a black identity extremist. We was looking around at one another like, what is that? Black identity extremist. You know, that's something them white boys came up with in the offices of the FBI. None of us claim to be no black identity extremists. What kind of extremes are you talking about? Like to do what? All right. Anyway, hold on for a second, fam. So when the movie came out, I think I did have a Walaikum Salam near Muhammad. Peace, Queen. I just felt a certain kind of way about it, but I sat through the movie and I kind of took from it what I could take from it. But knowing the story and knowing the history from studying and knowing people in the movement, I said, this is not accurate. All right. Hold on. It's the last clip I'm going to play, and then we're going to talk for a second, and we're going to get up on out of here. Let me see. Hold on, fam. All right. The last clip we're going to play.
I want to share something with you.
This is from the movie, Judas the Black Messiah.
Like the masses, I was in awe when I first laid eyes on all the things you are. I heard that speech. I knew we'd make noise. I just thought it'd be in the streets.
The Black Panthers are the single greatest threat to our national security. Our counterintelligence program must prevent the rise of a black messiah.
You're looking at 18 months for the stolen car, 5 years for impersonating a federal officer, or you can go home. What do you want? Get close to Hampton.
The Black Panthers are forming a rainbow coalition of oppressed brothers and sisters of every color.
Neutralize him by any means necessary.
America's on fire right now. And until that fire is extinguished, nothing else means a damn thing. Imagine what we could accomplish together. We can heal this whole city.
You ain't tell me it was gonna be like this. These ain't no terrorists.
We got a rat, man.
Does anybody else know about me?
No one knows your identity.
Are you sure?
We educate, we nurture, we feed, and we lobby. Perhaps we're here for more than just war with these bodies. We scream, and we shout, and we live by this anthem. But it's power to the people really worth their ransom.
When I dedicated my life to people, I dedicated my life
You get to go out there, talk about dying a revolutionary death, because you don't have another person growing inside your body.
Anywhere there's people, there's power.
Judas and the Black Messiah. Rated R. In theaters and streaming exclusively on HBO Max. February.
So like I said, when the movie came out, I checked it out, felt some kind of way, and was just like, wow. A lot that they could have said, a lot that they could have done. Yeah, it was just, but I'm glad because I had a conversation with Fred Hampton Jr. prior to the movie coming out years ago. And those kind of things I don't necessarily share with the public. I felt I necessarily had to, because it was a conversation with me and Fred Hampton Jr. Yeah. A lot of us that are my age right now, knowing and understand the history of the Black Panther Party and knowing the history of the United States government, never think that we would live to be in our 60s. Not that we had a death wish, but, that from what I knew and what the energy that I had and what the Creator deposited in me, this is why I set out to do what I felt I needed to do with putting together Public Enemy, along with, Chuck, Flavor, Terminator, Bomb Squad, S1Ws. Because we were taught by ex-Black Panthers. That's another thing I don't openly kind of talk about. Not for fear of anything, just, once the story is told, then, the story will be told. Anyway, any more questions? No, respect to you, Erica. All right, respect, Ernsta. Mr. Ernest Grant in the building. Listen, I do what I do because, of course, y'all already know. I do what I do for the people. Been doing it ever since you've known me. Go back in them early days. You see a 20-something-year-old Professor Griff in Public Enemy. Well, I was in the streets putting movements together like Unity Force and other movements together, whether it was martial arts or study groups. There's someone on here now that benefited from it. Ernst to tell him. So a young Professor Griff before Public Enemy was doing what I was doing. So family, let's study the life of Fred Hampton Sr. Let's get to know his son, Fred Hampton Jr. Let's understand what this day is, December 4th. So next year, we could fill this room up, all right? And then we could have a discussion so we could become a lot more educated about who those individuals are that we should always remember. And when you pour libation, make sure you mention Fred Hampton Sr. Can I get 3 ashes and hold it on the last one? Can everyone say ashe? Let me see it in the chat. A-S-E, ashe. I'll take the A-S-H-E also. Ashe. Everybody on IG, ashe. And everybody, let's hold the last one. Ready? Ashe. Can y'all give me that? Give thanks. Love y'all to life, fam. Something like this come up, I'll be coming on at night to share it with y'all, but I'm on during the day, Monday and Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Unless something else happen, those are my normal hours. I'm gonna have to push the release of my album back. It was coming out on Saturday. The album is called the Asante Soul. Part 2. Where's my other one? Part 2 to my Asapo Soul album. I forgot where I put it. Part 2, the Asapo Soul album. All right, it's Warrior Affirmations. All right, if we're about the business of being revolutionaries, all right, then be a revolutionary MC. Be a revolutionary artist if you draw and you paint. All right, be a revolutionary spoken word artist. All right, we have to be about the business of revolution. And revolution is complete, constructive, conscious, cosmic change. And the revolution starts here and here. This is Professor Griff. I love y'all to life. Peace. Peace.